Good day, everybody who's out there, whatever time of day it happens to be for you. I am Oakwalker. We're here. I'm here with my good friend Stronghorse, and he is with me today to do a podcast that we do a lot of these called Earth Medicine for the Soul. Earth Medicine for the Soul is a podcast that talks about all things spiritual, shamanic, planetary, getting us closer to our authentic selves. And we, both of us, feel that this is a very important process in every person's life. So we're here being geezers to share all of the long stories that we have engaged in and encountered in our lives. Last time we were talking about uh, planetary parity and how the changes that the planet is going through are being exacerbated by those with no parity at all. Today we want to continue that discussion a little bit into uh, the transdimensional aspect of these shifts in narratives that we're having. So, in order to sort of like catch us up on this, we were speaking about how there are people who just don't seem that they're ever going to get it. They're never going to get back to that sense of authenticity and sense of place in nature and on the earth that we all basically have to come from in order to really truly grow our souls. And as we move forward, we're going to talk about how to uh, do that a little bit more sincerely, and also how that's going to appear to us and each other as kind of looking like an entirely being in an entirely new dimension. What do you think about that, Mr. Stronghorse? Did you just freeze? Oh, it looks like I am having.
Hey, you're frozen.
Are you back?
Yeah, there you are.
Oh, good. Okay, that didn't last too long. Now I have a little message that says your internet connection is unstable. Dude, I think I already knew that. Thank you, though. Um, so let's press on because that might have been the only time it does this. I do know that they're working out there on the new fiber connections that people are getting. So that might cause a little bit of instability. And as soon as I'm eligible, I'll probably get one.
Okay. So anyway, what I was talking about to follow along with your discussion is that when you start getting into discussions about multi-dimensional worlds and veils and crossing over different dimensions and all, this is it's really it's a stretch for most people who haven't
Yeah.
experienced ceremony, who haven't spent any time alone out in the desert or in the mountains, and
Hmm.
it's a difficult subject, but it's so imperative with the future of this planet and how humans evolve into becoming human beings,
Yeah.
that we're just going to have to get after it, and hopefully there's enough people that latch onto it that'll it'll continue to blossom and create much more interest. And so I
And
wanted to
energy. Yeah.
get into dreaming a little bit in terms of how this is going to how that impacts parity with the consciousness of the planet,
Hmm.
because my elders say this is a planet of dreamers. That
Yeah.
you basically, if you can imagine yourself, if you're facing a series of veils or curtains of energy, and within each of these curtains, between them, there's different room, different spaces that have different pressures, and each pressure within these different layers is different, and each one offers a whole different perspective to you as a soul, as a spirit, and as a human being. So when you're projecting yourself into these different veils, these different layers, which you're doing constantly, whether you want to or not, what we're talking about is let's get conscious with it and know
Yeah.
what's going on and then put intent with it and start making this thing work for you instead of work against you.
Yes.
Because anything that you put out, you're going to get back.
Yep.
Because everybody that comes here is a soul who's seeking to deal with this planet of duality in order to see it themselves more clearly as a spirit and as a soul. They
Hmm.
come here to gain maturity, to gain self-realization, and to gain a leg up on their internal sense of self, and so that is what we're talking about when we talk about the authentic human being. The authentic human being is in touch with their soul. They understand why they're here. They understand what their mission is, and they understand what it is that they're supposed to be doing. I'm getting ready to have a conversation really with a young lady that's coming in town this week, my wife's daughter, and I'm going to try to explain to her because I realized through some comments that she said recently to her mom that I said, I'm going to have to get her to understand that every human being, every soul on this planet picks their own family to be a part of. It's not the other way around, and there's a reason for that. And when I first heard that teaching, I was like, oh yeah, well, I don't, I don't think so, man. You need to sell that somewhere else, pal. But
Uh-huh.
as I went on, I gained more maturity and I gained more knowledge. And more knowing. I started thinking, okay, well, I'm starting to see how that may have worked in my favor, as
Yeah.
hard as it was.
Right.
It was
Right.
really difficult, man. And there's nothing about it that I would wish on anybody. But for me, there were some aspects about it that assisted me in getting through some things that I wouldn't have normally been able to get through, you know. And
Yeah. Me
so,
too.
it's like once you experience 9 degrees, 32 ain't much. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's it's like it's like you become acclimated to these different things. All right. So
Hmm.
in dreaming, you have a personal dream, a collective dream, a universal dream, and a planetary dream, but then a universal dream. So those four dreams is what you set out to accomplish when you sat together with all your other spirit personalities in
Uh-huh.
council before you came into the physical.
Yeah.
And you agreed, you made a contract. All right, here's what here's what you're going to do for our collective, for our little soul pod. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to agree to do this. You're going to agree to do that. You're going to look for this. You're going to look for that. You're going to try to accomplish this. You're going to try to accomplish that. And so you're born with all that knowing, and then you immediately forget it. You
Uh-huh.
know, you
Yeah.
when you're born, you immediately forget it, and then so it's a matter of trying to remember. It's a gain of gaining memory. There is the key to gaining parity consciousness with the planet. It helps you to remember who you really are. Because when you have that parity, when you have that alignment with those pressures that I just got through talking about, it creates in you a less dense self. And when that density begins to melt away or demystify or whatever, then
That's a
you
good word.
start getting, you start getting more knowing and you know more about yourself. And sometimes you don't even know how but but something comes to you intuitively or through introspection that is just there's no doubt. There's just no doubt. And it's just you realize, man, that's important. I got to remember that, whatever that thing is. And that projects you onto a path that you and only you understand and appreciate. And you don't need anybody else to come around and tell you whether you're on a good path or a bad path or a stupid path, although they will, because that's just that's the way we're wired. So, yeah, yeah, I think if we're giving the people some kind of reason to why it's important to gain parity with the consciousness of the planet, that for me is one of the most important keys right there. What do you think?
Boy, you said a lot. So I want to run that backwards because you are absolutely correct about having to come in touch with the parity of the planet in order to achieve your four dream states. I have never had that precise teaching in that there are these specific four dream states, but that does resonate with all kinds of other teachings that sort of like build a structure around that. So it makes real good sense to me when you put it like
Hmm.
that. Um, I want to emphasize that the the conversations that I was having, because I've been fortunate enough to get to revisit those in my dreaming, and the council that I was with before before I came onto this planet, they had very specific things for me to do, but none of them were to influence human history. Okay. I wasn't given a mission to become the next George Washington. I didn't need to be Caesar Vini Vidi Viciing my way across the planet. The whole idea was about my individual soul development. It had nothing to do with we need you down on that planet so that you can knock off Robert E. Lee just in time, or the 21st century equivalent of Robert E. Lee. They didn't send me down to give Trump's dad a condom. They didn't send me down to, take out somebody or ensure that somebody didn't get to a place they needed to be. They're not really worried about that. That's going to play itself all out on its own level. But what they did want me to do was step up for a change. Apparently, a lot of my previous incarnations, I had been rather lazy and kind of a slacker. And so this time they were going to put me in and just say, dude, you've got some making up to do. We're not going to give you the easy life this time. You don't get to sit in a monastery and meditate for your 60 years. You gotta go through some stuff this time, and step up. And so that has a lot to do with the family that I got, that for me to say that I'm grateful that I got that family would be extremely misleading. But without having gotten that family, I don't think I would have learned the things that I did learn to the depth of intensity and authenticity that I did learn them. It was necessary for me to be with those people in order to know what not to be, for example, in order to prevent myself from making similar choices that I can't imagine could have been good for them or anyone. So there's
I was
that.
up at a,
Yeah.
go ahead. I was going to say, it reminded me of a story, a funny story. I was up at Lowe's, no, I mean, McCoy's one time, and this guy was driving this, uh, what do you call those front end loaders, and he was
Yeah.
whizzing around, and he really, I said to him, boy, I said, you're really good with it. He says, yeah, I've actually won some contests and stuff. And he told me, he says, yeah, my dad had me come up here and get this job so I would know what it was I didn't want to do when I grew up. And I told him, I said, boy, your dad is smart. I mean, you could tell he's a really sharp kid, and he was like, yeah, I'm up here
Right?
figuring out what it is I don't want to do.
Uh-huh.
And I think a lot of us go through that. A lot of us go through that. Yeah, this is the part I don't want to be.
Yeah, well, I had
Got
that
that
same
down.
thing, and I ended up doing exactly the same thing my dad did. And I fought it every step of the way. He was a field engineer. First of all, he was 20 years in the Coast Guard, but he was in communications in the Coast Guard, electronic communications. And I did not want to be like my father, who would stand us all up and make us stand at attention and say, "Sir, yes, sir," and stuff like that. And that is not the person that I wanted to be. Nevertheless, I kept testing positive for electronics on all those aptitude tests that the Air Force gives you. And I actually went down trying to avoid graduating from high school. I wanted the Air Force to give me a GED test. So I went down and I took their aptitude test, and they said, "Yeah, well, we don't want you as a photographer. We want you as an electronic guy." And I was like, "Oh, no, no way." They said, "Sure, we can. In fact, we can get you into the Air Force without a high school diploma if you come down and take this mental intelligence test." Have you heard this story before?
No, no.
So I took it. And the night before, there was a big keg party at my apartment. And I walked in there and I had been outdoor, selling Buicks, like Buick, like only 4 hours before this test came down. And I had eyes that were as red as little BBs. And I walked in there and I stink of beer. And I'm sitting down and they hand me this test and I got 100 on the test, on their mental intelligence test. First person in Reading ever to get 100 on their mental intelligence test. And I have to tell you, it wasn't because I was smart. It was because I had to get out of there. I was sick. It's- I had no intelligence whatsoever, and I just answered all the questions, the ones that made the most sense, right? Just bing, 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 bing. I was the first one done. I got out of there. I got 100 on the test. I don't know how I did that. And then the next day, I didn't go and join the Air Force. I went instead and signed up as a firefighter the next day. Anyway, that being said, here I am. I've done my little uh, my call to duty, right, by being a firefighter, I thought. And then I end up in electronics school anyway, because I really needed a skill. I had to get out of the kitchens. I was a short order cook. I hated it. I wasn't very good at it really because I didn't like it at all. So I ended up going to electronics school. My second job, I worked for the same man my dad did. Um, he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, you're that guy." He knew me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing here? And so, as no matter how hard I fought my destiny, that's what happened anyway, I was not going to be like my dad, but sure enough, there I am working for old Uncle Tom. Hey. And so,
Yeah. I
mm,
mean, go
yeah.
ahead. I'm sorry.
So I don't
No,
remember
I was
how
going
I
to
got
say,
into that.
well, it's a good point you're making there, but you're really going kind of jumping around it to get to it. But most of us that have started on this thing are kind of we're on the front lines of this, get tricked into it.
Mm,
You know, most people don't really go, oh yeah, yeah, I'll do that. I mean, how many times I'm sure you've done the same thing. I've sat around with friends of mine in the deer tribe, and going, oh, man, I'm going to read the writing in that contract next time.
right.
You know, I don't know
Yeah.
why I signed that thing. What was I thinking? And so we make all these jokes about it, but I remember when I was living in Santa Fe for a while, and I ran into this guy. His name was David. I can't remember his last name, but he was a priest with the Native American church, and he'd go down to South Texas and gather peyote and bring it back, and he'd tell me how he had to stop occasionally at the rest stops and put out his Indian blanket, put all his buttons out there, because you couldn't, he didn't want to go moldy and stuff, and by keeping them all cramped up. And he says these VW vans, the hippies are pulling, go, oh my God, what? Can we have some? He's like, no, this. So he kept saying to me, you need to do this, man. You need to get involved in this. And I was like, I'm not, I don't want to be part of a Native American church. I'm white. I mean, that
Hmm.
just doesn't work. He said,
Yeah.
no, this is really important, and I just blew it off. I never did. In fact, I was reading Greg Braden one time, and he was talking about his Indian friend up in Santa Fe by the name of David, and I know it was the same guy. But anyway, you know, and the only reason I went to a workshop with Swifter was because the woman that told me about it said he was a Nagual. And
Hmm.
I had read the Castaneda books, and I thought, well, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a workshop guy. I wasn't interested in
Yeah.
crystals. I wasn't. I mean, none of that, man, had any. And next thing I know, I mean, the first night, he did a lecture, and then he says, "Okay, we're going to go in a sweat lodge," and everybody around me stands up, and starts taking their clothes off, and I was like, "The hell's going on?" And I said, "Are we all going to get naked and then go climb in a hut and sweat and pray?" And they went, "Yeah, woo!" And I was like, "Holy shit! Where am I? What have I, what have I gotten myself into, man?"
Yeah.
And it was one of the most intense sweats. I mean, I've done over 100 sweats since then, but it
Hmm.
was one of the most intense sweats I'd ever been in. And I won't go into a long dialogue about it, but when I came out, I remember thinking, "Wow, I really do feel different." You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a huge change. So you make a good point, that a lot of times for us to remember, we have to get tricked. It's like our
Hmm.
guardian angels go, "Okay, well, they did get it last time. Let's try this one."
Yeah. I
You
once
know,
had a dream where I
and
was,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I once had a dream where I was just about to incarnate, and they were like, "Yeah, you're gonna love it, man. You're gonna get to, be physical with people. You're gonna have a sense of touch. You're just gonna love this." And I'm on this diving board, right? And I look down and I go, "Is that shit?" And they go, "Yeah." Poof. That's
Really?
just
I
that
didn't sign
happened,
up for this
right?
dream.
That's just the way my subconscious had of, going, "Well, okay, you did land."
Oh man. I mean, that's one of the joys of this path, is to sit around and tell some of the war stories, that we've all, gotten into that it just left us speechless, like, oh my God, I can't, I love the fact that we have humor, I mean,
Hmm.
and I find it to be one of the more important aspects of it is for me anyway of my authentic self is as I've recounted this story several times recently. What it was my wife Colleen said to me, she said, she remembers the time we were channeling. I don't know when this was because I don't remember it, but she said that the order of Melchizedek was taken aback by our humor because they live in a space of pure truth and pure love,
Uh-huh.
and so that their humor's not really a part of their thing. I mean, it's like if you were to walk into a bunch up there and walk to a bunch of them and go, "Hey, did you hear the one about the pirate and the bird that walked into and a parrot walked into a bar?" And they'd go, "Why would a pirate and a parrot walk into a bar?"
Parrots don't drink.
Exactly. They're like, never mind. So so I find it interesting that that we're constantly being tricked into remembering.
Hmm.
I think it's fascinating, that because you have to have. See, I think God has the greatest sense of humor in the world. I mean,
Yeah,
I really do.
clearly he
I mean,
does.
that's what the Heyoka is all about. And
Uh-huh.
Swifter used to always have the teaching. The Heyoka is the one who is closest to the Creator because he does everything backwards.
Yeah. And
So
what
yeah,
looks like irreverence is actually a growing closer. Because
yeah.
if I understand the Heyokas correctly, their irreverence isn't for God. It is for your delusions. The irreverence is for your delusions, not uh, irreverence toward the Creator. So that's why he does everything backwards, is because he's putting it in your face. You're not all that good at this, and and I just
That's why I mean that's a Hioka move to push you off a dive into a pool ship. I
yeah,
mean
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's that's the perfect Hioka move. Because
Uh-huh.
it's like, well, you're taking yourself way too serious. So here you
Exactly.
go. you know, and So yeah, I mean, I think humor is a big part of it.
Hmm.
It helps us to not take ourselves so seriously. Um, because I think when you start taking yourself seriously, that's what formulates dogma.
Yeah,
That's what, and that's end up the dogma then becomes like a route or root thing of way of expressing yourself, and then that moves into cult behavior.
yep,
Because you're
exactly.
you start
And the next thing
you're
you know, you're into, bad things,
bad
concentration
things. Yeah,
camps.
yeah. I mean, it's just you're way too
Hmm.
impressed with yourself, and you start looking at that as like, oh well, this is the way to be. No, no, it's not.
Yeah,
No, it's not. And it's in the place of joy and frivolity and a blessing that is, the grace of the Creator is found in those arenas, I think, don't you?
I agree. I totally agree. And that this is why the first one third of the Course in Miracles is about telling you about your ego. Says it over and over and over again. This is all of this ego-based stuff. This isn't going to work for you. It isn't real. It's none of that is real, and that always comes. But joy is real, you know. And even if they have no sense of humor in, the at the council, the level of the council, for example, that doesn't mean it isn't pleasant there. It's beautiful
Right.
when they meet and they just blend together in a whole and complete, coupling with one another. They don't have any inhibitions about what or who the other person is. It's all transparent. It's all right out there, and it's all part of that mystical union that they share with that which is the creator, and they share it with each other, and they share it with everything in their environment. This is what we're growing into as we move through these changes on the planet as well, I believe. But I totally
Yeah,
agree
one
that,
one is one.
yeah, that there's only one. Everything else doesn't
There's only
exist.
one.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, I think I mean, all of this stuff that we're bouncing back and forth really is sort of giving everybody a glimpse into different aspects of the authentic self. You
Hmm.
know, um, each and every person has I like to think about it as a thread within the tapestry of life.
Uh-huh.
And
Yes.
they're each color is important for the
Yeah.
overall picture, and so everybody's got it. That's what I'm talking about when the different dreaming. Your personal dream is what you're describing in terms of becoming a electrician or
Yeah.
working on. Okay, your sacred dream is what your soul came here to remember.
Yeah.
It's and it's like when you and I first met, and I started talking about Melchizedek, and you went, okay, now you have my attention because my angel's been going, it's Melchizedek. It's all
Yeah.
about Melchizedek, and they were telling you that. And all of a sudden
Yeah.
now I'm here going, oh, yeah, we need to yeah, let's all get together and do Melchizedek stuff. You're like, wow, here it
How do you
is.
do
It's like delivered to your front door, and so.
that?
So we've been doing that, and
Yeah.
then so the universal, so that's your second, then your planetary dream is what we're talking about. But how does this fit into our parity with the planet?
Hmm.
What does that look like? How does it work? What's this cohesion about? And what can we do to help fortify that and to
Yeah.
help
It's
teach
as if
others
that's
and
the
show this
ground
to
that
others?
your path is on.
Say that again?
That's the ground that your path is on, right? So when
Right.
you carve a path through the a woods, and you can see the dirt underneath where the path is now it's a path. That's the cohesion with the planet. That's the planetary dream. Because you have to be walking on that terra firma. You've got to have something to relate it all to, you know? Am I making
Saw
any
a great
sense
quote the
there?
other day. The guy said, stop looking any other place than where your feet are.
Yeah.
You know, and I
Right?
thought that was really great.
Yeah,
You
that was
know,
one of my favorites. because it makes me feel like it's all right to be where I am. And that's a thing as I get, fearful and overwhelmed at times, that's a saying that I can come back to with regularity and go, this is all going to be okay. And it all is okay. Even when you make mistakes, that's okay. It's all okay. I need that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest thing I think that we can accomplish for ourselves and for the planet is birthing our authentic self. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm absolutely convinced that that is the most powerful force on the planet.
Yeah.
Because if we were made in the image of the Creator, then to become authentic is to become the Creator.
Yeah.
And if you're following that logic. And so if we've all said to one another, eventually what we're looking at is a co-creative state and stance with the creator, a conscious connection, spirit to spirit, co-creation, so that we become the left and right hand of the creator on this planet,
Hmm.
so that we're manifesting on this planet that which the creator seeks to manifest in this space.
Yes.
And so I think that for us to be able to get to that place, that's not going to come from following some other text or some other ancient being or some, you know, uh, guru. It's just going to come from birthing yourself and getting in touch with yourself and listening to yourself. And
Yes.
that's why you said it's so important to go out and sit in nature and just listen, because
Yeah.
if you don't get rid of all the external noise,
Hmm.
you can't hear yourself, man.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the shamans that they'd stay up late at night because everybody else would go to sleep and then they could hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah, I do.
they'd wait for that collective rumble to calm down so that they could be in a place of receptivity,
Yes, exactly. Lots of others wake at 4 because they can't sleep anymore. Might as well get up and listen for a while. It's a real good time to
Yeah,
get.
I can't do that because I live on a highway and at 4 o'clock the trucks are already rolling. The cement trucks
I'm
are
sorry
moving.
to
I'm
hear
like,
that.
yeah, yeah. Okay, well, the butterflies have gone. Oh, yeah. But I agree with that 100%. A lot of people, that have the ability to be in a place that's quiet, like you said, a monastery or in the
Yeah,
mountains or whatever. They're able to get up at that early hour to be able to take advantage of that blessing of the new day. But they have to there again we're talking about the dreaming. They're
yeah,
dreaming and they have a constant intention. I'm going to step into the day.
yeah,
I'm going to be joyful for this day. I'm going to be thankful for it coming to me again. I can't wait to greet the sun. Almost every morning, I sit out on my front porch and salute the sun when it comes up.
yeah,
It's
yeah, me
like
too.
it's a
Something
ritual for
like
me,
that.
and it's one of the best things that I can do for myself because I know how
Exactly.
important it is.
Yeah, me too. Well, that's a good place to uh, fade out. Let's fade out now and thank everyone for being with us. We haven't gone too far over, but a little. I want to remind everyone that we are Oakwalker and Stronghorse, and we are Earth Medicine for the Soul. We really appreciate that you made it this far into this discussion, and we want to thank you very much for being here. If you want to keep in touch with us or get to see more of what we do, go visit earth-ems.org, and all of the appropriate links and information are out there for you to share. And as we build into bigger and better things, we're going to report all of that out there on that site as well. So thank you very much. And I am going to tell you that the only thing perfect is the